When measurement becomes governance, you open the dashboard and suddenly the meeting is about green boxes, not customers, not safety, not craft. Notifications, checklists, and approvals pile up, and nobody can name when the score became the work. A metric becomes the mission when it becomes the cheapest way to prove you did the mission. That slide happens through proxy drift. The proxy is a number meant to represent a value, but over time, the number starts replacing the value because it travels faster, audits easier, and allocates rewards with less argument. Start with a real constraint. Attention is limited, time is limited, and managers cannot personally witness the work they are responsible for. Distance creates a verification problem. To solve it, a system picks a proxy: tickets closed, calls handled, response time, defects found, hours logged, training modules completed. The proxy is not evil. It is a coping mechanism for scale. Then incentives enter. Promotions, budgets, staffing, and praise need justifications that can survive scrutiny. A narrative can be debated. A number looks objective. So the organization rents certainty from measurement. The metric becomes a shared language for decisions, and that gives it power. Here is the feedback loop. What gets reported gets discussed. What gets discussed gets funded. What gets funded gets repeated. A weekly dashboard review turns the metric into a constraint on the next week's behavior. People do not need to be told to chase it. They feel it in the distribution of time and in the friction of approvals. Now notice the trade-off that hides inside every proxy. The metric reduces complexity so coordination becomes possible, but the reduction also deletes context. Speed metrics trade off against thoroughness. Throughput trades off against fairness and care. Defect counts trade off against exploration, because new work creates new mistakes. The system chooses a side without saying it chose. Because the proxy is observable, it becomes gameable. Not always through cheating, often through optimization. If tickets closed is rewarded, work gets split into smaller tickets so closure counts rise. If response time is rewarded, hard cases get delayed or rerouted so the average looks good. If training completed is rewarded, the play button runs while attention goes elsewhere. The system permits these moves because it measures what it can see, not what it claims to value. Capture is gradual. First the metric is a tool, then it becomes a shield. The numbers say we're fine, then it becomes a weapon, your numbers are low. Finally it becomes identity. We are a high-performing team, meaning our chart is up. At that point the mission has been converted into a reporting format. No one needs to decide any of this. Individuals protect themselves from blame by aligning to what is audited. Leaders protect themselves from uncertainty by trusting the dashboard. The system protects itself from debate by preferring what is comparable. Proxy drift is governance by default. Attention allocation becomes the law, and the law is written in metrics. When a metric becomes the mission, values do not disappear. They become externalities. They still exist, but nobody owns them because they are not on the screen. Care becomes nice to have. Judgment becomes inconsistent. Long-term trust becomes not measurable this quarter. This is why measurement is never neutral. A proxy is a decision about what counts as real. It rewards some behaviors and taxes others. It teaches people what kind of truth the system will recognize, and once people learn that lesson, their attention follows the recognition. Responsibility here is not about blame. It is about acknowledging what the system permits, constrains, and ignores. If the only visible proof of work is a number, then the organization has quietly chosen a worldview. That legitimacy comes from legibility. Meaning is pushed to the margins because it is harder to audit, not because it is less important. A disciplined reflection can begin without slogans. In your mind, name one metric you currently serve, one chart, one count, one score, one checklist that shapes your week. Then name one value that metric might erase when it becomes the easiest story to tell. Quality, learning, dignity, safety, honesty, patience, courage. Notice the moment the proxy starts acting like a boundary, when it changes what gets spoken aloud in meetings, what gets postponed, who gets protected, who gets exposed. Notice how quickly the metric becomes a substitute for attention, and how quickly attention becomes a substitute for care. This is not a call to abandon measurement. It is an invitation to see measurement as governance, and governance as the management of attention under constraint. A metric becomes the mission when it becomes the only proof the system will accept. What you measure, you serve.